partner call for the Affordable Rental Housing Division. I'm Natasha Detweiler-Davy, Director of Affordable Rental Housing here at OHCS. And so this is, for those who might be here for the first time, we have this partner call the week leading up to our Housing Stability Council meeting, which is this Friday. And let's see, I will note that next month's Housing Stability meeting would traditionally fall on July 4th, but because of the July 4th holiday, next month's July meeting will actually be on July 12th. But so for this week's Housing Stability Council meeting, we will have, so I guess I'll start with that. What are we bringing to Housing Stability Council this Friday? I know we also want to provide an update on the ORCA and the launch of that, and then see what other questions folks have. And so in terms of our Housing Stability Council meeting on Friday, we do have a transaction moving forward for a 4% tax credit project. We are also introducing the PUSH, Publicly Supported Housing Sellers Tax Credit, and the HUD Price Grant. And so I think Rick is on here, so he can do potentially just give a little overview of the PUSH Sellers Tax Credit. He's at an in-person meeting, so is in a meeting room. So Rick, do you mind just giving a quick overview of the PUSH Sellers Tax Credit?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Natasha. Hi, my name is Rick Ruzicka. I am the Assistant Director of Planning and Policy, and yes, we're presenting the PUSH Sellers Tax Credit, which is HB 2071, which was passed during the 2023 legislative session and provides $3 million annually in tax credits that may be used to help entice owners of expiring publicly supportive housing to sell to buyers that would extend the affordability restrictions on the property. 2071 requires that affordability restriction extensions be no less than 30 years. The statute caps the amount of tax credit on a per property basis. Generally, if you've owned the property for less than 5 years, you're not eligible for the tax credit. Or if the owner has owned it for 5 to 10 years, they're eligible for 2.5% of the sell price or the appraised price, whichever is less. If they've owned it for more than 10 years, they can get the maximum amount of the tax credit, which is 5% of the sale or appraised price, whatever's less. The credit would be applied for by the purchaser, but of the property who would agree to the affordability restriction should they be successful in purchasing the property. But ultimately, the credit would be used by the seller. And so to apply for this, would set that up in our ORCA process. You'd apply through our intake process. There would be kind of an off ramp where you'd put your information in, and then you would be potentially eligible after review of that for this PUSH Sellers Tax Credit. We've been engaging on this on a framework since May. We had a May 16th meeting that was open for everyone to come, and then have been at various meetings and committee meetings and things, also presenting our information. At this point, we're in the process of taking all of that information and kind of reevaluating what our kind of initial thoughts were. But at council meeting, we're just going to kind of present the basics of the bill, talk about our engagement processes, and then we hope that we'll have some sort of kind of updated framework sent out within the next week or two for folks to provide us additional feedback. And then we're going to go back to council in July and then hopefully be able to open the program as early as August. So that's what's on deck for the HUD or the PUSH Sellers Tax Credit. Open for any questions if anybody has any.
Any questions, anybody? hear no questions. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next up, we are also going to be talking about the HUD price grant that we are working to apply for. And so I have Britt here to be able to do a couple minutes on that. Thanks, Britt.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Britt McLean. I'm an operations and policy analyst here in affordable rental housing. Very happy to be with you today. OHCS will submit a $25 million grant application request for HUD's Preservation Reinvestment Initiative for Community Enhancement, or PRICE for short. PRICE is making available $235 million for the revitalization and preservation of manufactured homes and dwelling parks nationwide. As manufactured housing is the largest source of unsubsidized affordable housing, OHCS is thrilled to have this opportunity to continue supporting the expansion and preservation of this housing stock with the help of some federal funds. Our proposal utilizes two current programs administered by our homeownership division and our affordable rental housing division, with some modifications to meet price rules and award funds across the state. The public comment period on our application package begins tomorrow, June 4th, and it'll run through Thursday, June 20th for a total of 17 days. There will be several ways to offer comment that we will walk through at our public hearing tomorrow, June 4th at 11 a.m. I will put the registration link to that public hearing in the chat in just a second. The registration link is on our price application webpage, which I will also put in the chat. Application materials and the online survey for those materials will be posted tomorrow morning before the hearing. Partners can offer feedback via online survey, email, traditional mail, and in person at our second public hearing on June 20th in Salem. More details will come on that second public hearing. And I know I ran through that pretty quickly, so I'm happy to take any questions folks have. And while I do that, I will get the link for everything in the chat.
Any questions from anybody?
Actually, I am going to send this link to Kim, and then I think Kim can put it into the chat. Looks like I'm having a little bit of trouble sending it to everybody. So Kim, I'm sending it over to you.
So we'll get that the links sent out, circulated to everybody. Any questions around the price grant opportunity?
Natasha, I have no questions, but I was
Okay.
noticing that, I don't know if everybody's, but on my chat box, it doesn't allow me to send anything to you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have it for everybody either.
Yeah,
So
I'm not totally sure what happened there, but we will I don't know that we're gonna be able to diagnose live. It does seem like
No, that's fine. I just
yeah.
wasn't sure if anybody else was having problems. But
I think the same as thing is happening to me, but I agree. We'll make sure that we're trying to understand that for future meetings for sure. I'm not quite sure what happened. Thanks, Cindy. Which also means if everybody can't submit I don't know what that means. If you can't, oh, now maybe you can. Looks like maybe Kim fixed it. If there's from next to the two, I now see an everyone. So certainly if you're wanting to ask a question in the chat, you can now. Yes, thanks, Kim. Great. Very excited about the opportunity to apply. So thanks for any input or feedback that you want to put into our process. Great. Okay. So those are the two primary introduction topics that we'll be bringing to Housing Stability Council. I will also be engaging in part of the conversation related to affordable rental housing on our agency request budget and process and engagement to get Housing Stability Council. We did our engagement probably a couple weeks ago now, and which was really incredible, really dug deep into preservation and permanent supportive housing conversations. So really appreciate everybody's information and insight throughout all of that. Both that participated in the conversations during our engagement session, as well as in the follow-up survey. Really appreciate it. And so we'll pick that conversation up with Housing Stability Council to add their perspective into the conversation and share some of the things that we were hearing from all of you. Okay, well, the next thing I was just gonna open the conversation about is the ORCA, the Affordable Rental Housing Oregon Centralized Application, which we're calling the ORCA. That website launched last week. We have a training scheduled this week. And so I think that Ed is on, there he is, here to be able to share a little bit more, and we'll see what other things come up. We'll have to stop short of doing a full ORCA training in this conversation. So we'll certainly more to come later this week. Thanks, Ed.
Yeah. Thanks, Natasha. Basically here prepared to answer any questions, but also to advertise that we have the June 6th training. That's this Thursday coming up. We got a full 90 minutes, and we are to this day working furiously on making sure that we're prepared for that and got as much information packed into that time as possible. But last week, if you weren't aware already, we opened up a whole new section of our webpage, of our website to talk more about ORCA information. We shared the new ORCA manual or instructions document for all of you that are familiar with our old NOFA process. It's a similar document, and that it has a lot of similar information to the NOFA document in the past. So we've shared that now publicly. If you haven't seen that, please head on over there and check it out. If you go to our website and you look down at resources, you'll see the ORCA. And click into there, we have a lot of great new content for everyone to find. We have a number of training videos. We have a whole new questions portal for everyone. So instead of using the old FAQ process that we had in the past, we have a new questions portal for you to be able to send your questions to us. It's a whole new system for us to be able to track and monitor and respond back timely to all of your questions. From that, we develop, potentially we'll develop new FAQs, or we might just respond back directly depending on the content. So that's an exciting new system. We're really excited to tell you so much more in great depth on Thursday, but just a snippet of so many exciting things to come with the new ORCA process. I mean, one of them is that I haven't even told Kim about is that we need to talk about our new digital payment system. We're no longer going to ask you for physical checks mailed. We're going to take application fees online. So joining the 21st century technology. So that's another exciting development. Then a lot of additional updates. So I think a lot of partners have been a little bit curious about the volume. So something else, we released access to our intake form, the ORCA's intake form. We've received a lot of responses through that. I think a lot of partners have been kind of curious. And so I've been given the green light. We have over 70 intake responses that we're going to be providing Work Center access to next week. And that kind of actually gets me to another segment where a lot of people have a lot of curiosity. So we've released the ORCA. We released the new website components on June 12th. We're planning to provide Work Center access. So for everyone that's been asked, well, when do I get into my Work Center, our Procorum Work Center, to be able to provide to you all of our application materials? We're looking at doing that next week on Wednesday, so June 12th, and then I lost my train of thought, but that was one component. So we've had a number of responses come into us. So as I said, we have over 70 projects that are being provided Work Center access next week. So we're excited about that, which is we didn't know what to expect. I wouldn't say it's not on the high end over here where we were making some wild guesses, and it's more than our lowest guess. So I'd say it's somewhere in the middle, and yeah, looking forward to that. I think I'll stop short there and just kind of want to open up if there's any additional questions. Again, as far as getting a in-depth exposure to or training of the ORCA process and how from intake to the impact assessment step of the ORCA, we're going to be explaining all of that in that June 6th training. We are going to record that. We're going to provide that to everyone if you're not able to make it there or if you want to watch it again.
Great.
Can I ask a question?
Sure thing. Yeah. So yes, Robin, I was going to add one thing. I think for everybody who hasn't done so already, so if you look at the website links that you'll see there, the first thing anybody can do, and they can do that now, is submit their projects into intake. And that's what Ed is describing. And so you submit the questions into intake. And I see a question around in the chat, Ed, from Ellen, about whether all intake forms have been reviewed yet. And so I think that the team is reviewing them as they come in, so triaging through those. And I presume and it's not too late to fill out.
Right, not too late to fill out. No, you can fill out an intake form at any time. You can go to our website again through those new web pages. Since April, we've been providing access to the intake form. So you can tell us about your project. You can submit an intake form for your project at any point for the foreseeable future. There's no point at which we're anticipating closing that down at this point. So it's open and available for you to interact with. The intake forms, we don't really do a threshold review. We do take all of the new intake submissions. We do an internal review of those. We do determine if there's the appropriate next step is to provide a work center for those projects, or if maybe we need different support to reach out or provide clarification about a project. We've had a couple small handful of cases where we determined that maybe it was actually appropriate for another division within OHCS. And so there is an internal evaluation, but otherwise, as long as it is an affordable rental housing project and the appropriate next step is to go on to the first step of the ORCA, then we'll go ahead and create those work centers and do that processing internally. The impact assessment step is really where we get to know a lot more about your project. The intake form itself is really a very high level snapshot of the project today, just so that we have an understanding of how far along it is, how long it might take for it to get to closing conceivably. So whether that's a month from now or a couple of years from now, just getting an understanding of the project. And so that's the intake form.
Great, thanks, Ed. And I think into the question, so the projects that are flagged for moving to get a work center when when that next step of the application launch are ones that are applying for resources that we have available. We are not offering tax credits right now, so those are not projects that are relying on tax credits. So Robin, sorry to get back to your question.
Okay, I have two. The first one is just that I heard a rumor that if you don't have a culturally specific organization that you're working with, you're just working with a culturally responsive organization, you probably won't get funded. And I'm wondering if that applies to rural, and I'm wondering if that's true. And then second, frankly, I can't remember if I already filled out an intake form. And so how can I find out if I already did that for a project that I'm working on?
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ed, if you want to answer that question around how do you know if you filled out an intake form.
Yeah, sorry, Natasha, and then we'll come back to the probably the bigger question. Just so you can reach out to the applications team. And I saw Elizabeth Carr is actually throwing some links in there, and I'll ask her to go ahead and throw our email in there as well. So you can reach out directly to us at our applications team email. Just ask us your question. We'll respond back to you there.
Great. And so in terms of the rumor, I think that we do have some dedicated resource. I don't know what the rumors are. There is that we do have resources set aside that is eligible for culturally specific organizations and nonprofit organizations doing development in rural communities. But the regional allocations, the vast majority of the rest of the funds are available to any developer who meets the standards within the regions. We are also talking, we do have pre-development money that also includes kind of a similar alignment towards rural and nonprofit and culturally specific organizations. So I think overall, I don't think that that's the case, that we are requiring that if you're culturally specific, if you're not a culturally specific organization, you wouldn't be able to access resources. I think we do expect all projects to center equity and racial justice and be culturally responsive, but that is in terms of a standard, not an organizational qualification. There is some underneath the preservation umbrella within that framework. There is additional detail in terms of prioritization. I think I see Darcy also had a question on preservation resources in the chat. That is following our preservation framework, the work that has been navigated through that, and is leveraging our existing resources. We do expect funding projects. Most of the funding is intentionally aligned towards both physical and financial risk of loss, as well as portfolio stabilization. There's $10 million held for risk of expiration. We understand that there's without tax credit leverage, there's we're unlikely to be buying being able to fund the purchase and third-party acquisition of a lot of large projects. But yeah, I think that is the answer on those ones. We are, in terms of sharing data and information, we are working with our research team and application team. Will be launching a dashboard that has the information about the resource asks and uses. So we'll be able to share more information about that. Any other? Okay, and then there's some, I think a lot of the details on the resources, I think we'll also be able to cover in our training and how that's going to work. And yes, I think to the last chat there from Ryan, the work center access provides so that's the first step is always submitting an intake. Then and then the work center is what will have the forms in it to fill out. But the full ORCA document is on the website now, along with a lot of associated materials.
Hi, are you taking questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Steph, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Hey, I'm just curious for projects that are like in PSAs, that are burning down on the timeline. How are we going to navigate it with timing with this funding to ensure that we don't miss our windows with PSA and lose the deal?
And I assume you're talking about,
sensitive.
You're not talking about like preservation purchase, you're talking about like land purchase or something, is that right?
Yeah.
I think as soon as so this is the first time that it is opening. The idea is that then this is open moving forward. So when the project is ready, you'll be able to access your work center and move forward. So I think, making sure that you're submitting information as timely. I've done the intake and I think wherever you have timing aspects of that, including the detail for the in your submission, is we'll be able to figure out the road mapping for that. I don't know, Ed, if you have other thoughts that would be helpful to reflect into that.
Not familiar with the PSA element.
It's the purchase and sale agreement. That's the timing for the when there's a the
Yeah, like so if you're acquiring a piece of land that you're going to develop, it's the contract.
Okay.
to be able to purchase it, and they have
Sorry, yeah.
timelines, and so just trying to figure out if we're gonna be able to hit our time frames, how it's gonna line up with this.
Yeah, timing wise, I mean, that is something that we will talk about on June 6th, but in general, timing is really going to be dependent on how quickly applicants are going to be able to fill out the full application materials.
Okay.
So time to closing, I mean, without having really gotten to take any of these projects fully through our process, I mean, the intent is that this will be a potentially faster process than the NOFA process. It's kind of taking that whole NOFA component. We've been saying this, numerous times, but we're saying we're kind of blowing that up. And so we are getting involved with the impact assessment is earlier than the NOFA application period. Financial eligibility is getting kind of closer to where we want projects that were in the past. We want them that are more shovel ready. In terms of the PSA, after a project has finished that first step, the impact assessment, and if the project's ready to move on, we take those applications at that point to the Housing Stability Council for an approval, and so we're able to make a reservation of funding at that point. And so if that helps either with that, depending on what kind of PSA you've got, in terms of time to get to closing, the timeline on that from start to finish, from beginning with an intake form to being able to get to closing, I imagine is still going to be, it'll be possible to move within less than 6 months. But again, that really is dependent on a lot of activity from the sponsor and how far along that project is and its ability to provide us all of the materials for an application, and then still allow for the fact that we have to go to the Housing Stability Council. We still need a certain time that's baked in for review.
Yeah, and so I think that, I think that's a really critical point. The intention is that we are trying to move at the speed of projects being able to move forward instead of having an artificial time. So we will need still have review period, but we're not doing a competition. We're evaluating against standards. And then we're casting all of the dates based on the timeline that you are indicating the project is moving forward. So I think, so I think to Ed's point, as ideally we're moving as fast and in conjunction with you as development partners to be able to meet the need and not miss opportunities to support development.
Yeah, that's great, because I think we have one that definitely has some timeline constraints that we would need a quick turnaround, but we can move quickly on our end. So we'll look forward to the training, and then we'll take it from there and see.
Absolutely.
How we can, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And our intent, and I see Darren's question, is that we will do Housing Stability Council approval for an up to amount at the at following the impact kind of the policy review, feeling that is the earliest place that we can bring it and is in line with what Housing Stability Council wants to be informing and seeing. And so ideally, it's like we're still navigating what that looks like as we bring impact assessment recommendations through, but we would be cough here, sorry. We would be bringing forward through impact assessment for approval, and then a conditional commitment, and that conditional commitment will lay out the needs for that project to retain the commitment, which includes timeliness, following through on the next application step processes to do a financial assessment before final funding commitment. And so then I see that Paul, your questions on so I think the all projects need to be culturally responsive, and incarcerated individuals, we would still expect that there are culturally responsive aspects to the project. And I think that means different things to different projects and different target populations, but it's not just about, limiting, restricting who is served in the project, but it is about creating a welcoming and responsive environment. And so projects that served released or formerly incarcerated adults would be, knowing as much as that at this point would be eligible for the resources. It is income restricted and all of that. Absolutely.
We're all over all of that. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Glad I
Great. Thanks. Yep. Great. Any other questions? I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of, certainly this is our first time doing this through this ORCA process, not a competitive NOFA, but we have published the document so folks can read it and understand it or have questions about it going into the training later this week, at which point you'll get more information to get ready for when the work centers open next week. And we will just kind of keep moving that through. We'll be making sure that we're also prioritizing sharing information back, making sure that we have a good, transparent way of communicating the resource availability. Great. Okay. Well, I guess, are there any other questions not associated with any of those topics that folks would like to flag for discussion? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us on this very Monday, and hope you have a good week. We'll see you on the 6th for the ORCA training and on the 7th for Housing Stability Council. Thank you so much.